Stephen, thank you for joining us.
Well, Mike, it's a great pleasure.
Now, tell us about InvestHK or Invest Hong Kong, the main functions and support mechanisms you have available.
Yes, well, Invest Hong Kong is a department of the Hong Kong SAR government, which has got a fairly straightforward remit, and that is to help companies from around the world and from mainland China, both to set up and expand in Hong Kong. And day to day, the support that we provide is through a network of 30 odd offices all around the world, as well as a team in Hong Kong that is more specialised on a sector by sector basis. And we help companies at every stage of the investment journey. First of all, in terms of planning, working out what Hong Kong and through Hong Kong, what they can tap into in Asia. We help through the setup process. We help the companies launch, get plugged into networks in Hong Kong. And then ultimately, we work with companies over the much longer term to make sure they're capturing all the opportunities that Hong Kong offers and to help them grow in the city. Because ultimately, what we want to do as government is to have companies generate jobs in Hong Kong and add to the overall economy in the city.
What industries or businesses should really be looking at Hong Kong, and what incentives are available for them at the moment?
Well, Hong Kong is a mature economy, as I'm sure you know. So the opportunities really are across the board. It's also a very sophisticated economy in terms of both consumers and in terms of the businesses. So we see opportunities in very traditional sectors, financial services, obviously something Hong Kong is very much known for, the allied professional services, accountancy, legal, and so forth. We have a very vibrant consumer product sector, a vibrant creative industries, and a strong tourism and hospitality sector. We also have quite a strong industrial and logistics sector, perhaps something that isn't so known about Hong Kong. And we're seeing some small scale advanced manufacturing being set up again in Hong Kong. Then we've got all of the innovative led sectors as well. Fintech, on the back of being an international financial centre, is one of the hottest areas right now. But we also have a very strong innovation policy environment, which means that we're seeing companies in biotech, in smart cities, in AI, robotics, as well as fintech setting up in the city, doing R&D in the city, but with a view to the bigger Asian landscape. And of course, most of the companies that come to Hong Kong are not just looking at the opportunities in the city. They're looking at the opportunities in what's known as the Greater Bay Area. So that's Hong Kong, Macau, and 9 cities in Guangdong, as well as wider China, and also the fast-growing economies of ASEAN, as well as other markets such as Japan and Korea. One of the great advantages of Hong Kong is being slap bang in the middle of the region. So management teams can cover the whole patch very easily. In terms of incentives, Hong Kong typically makes doing business really easy. So we've got a very pro-business government. Government tries to get out of the way of companies doing business. So straightforward, we have a very low and simple tax regime. Profits tax, which is our corporate tax, starts just at 8.25% and is maximum 16.5%. Income tax for individuals, the maximum any employee would pay is 15%. So the fundamental environment is very attractive. We do have a number of funding schemes, you might call them incentives, that companies can tap into, particularly around the innovation agenda. Some are tax driven, some are grant or equity driven. And then we have some very specialised structures which may have particular advantages for certain types of investors. But what we don't have is a one size fits all. And I think the key message I'd like to get across is that if anybody would like to have a think about what Hong Kong means for them, come and have a chat to us at Invest Hong Kong, and we'll talk you through all of the different angles that might be applicable to your business.
A lot of unrest and disruption around the world, in the US with its civil unrest and COVID-19, same for Hong Kong. How's this affected InvestHK's activities?
Well, Invest Hong Kong itself has been impacted, just like businesses all around the world have been impacted. As I said, we've got 30 odd offices around the world. Most of those are in a sort of mixed mode of operation. Maybe some people in the office periodically, but a lot of working from home. So we've had to adapt, like most businesses, to delivering much more digitally. So we make very effective use of webinars, one-to-one meetings with companies, and we've even gone to the extent of doing investment promotion visits in a concerted way virtually. So just last week, in fact, I was working through the middle of the night in Hong Kong, but talking to companies in Peru, Uruguay, Chile and Colombia. So we're making best use of technology. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we're taking companies along the investment journey whilst they're unable to travel. Of course, the companies that we're working with have been impacted very severely by COVID. So companies in Hong Kong, we're helping them to adapt to the current environment. The Hong Kong government, like many governments around the world, has had a whole range of economic relief measures, and we help companies navigate those for themselves. We're talking to the companies that we've been talking to for a while to help them progress as far as they can. And then we're trying to keep the visibility of Hong Kong high around the world by using virtual events. Just the week before last, in fact, we had one of our biggest events, which we call Start Me Up Hong Kong Festival, which is a week-long festival of events. And this year it was totally virtual. But we managed to get 471 speakers from 97 countries or territories around the world. Wow. A total of 181,000 people participated across the week. And we had an exhibition area, a virtual exhibition area that attracted 199 participants. So I think that tells you quite clearly how interested businesses are right around the world, those 97 countries, looking at using Hong Kong to tap into these markets of Asia, which once the world begins to recover, will continue to be the engine of economic growth.
So what's Invest Hong Kong's main priorities right now?
Well, I think our top priorities really are threefold. There's looking after the existing investors. Of course, some of them are having a tough time, certain sectors more impacted by COVID than others. So we're helping them to adjust to the current environment, but also helping them to look at what the new angles might be as economic recovery comes about. We're working with companies that we've been talking to for a number of months to progress them to the stage that they can open up in Hong Kong. So that's also a very important priority, because we don't want to sort of drop the ball, take our eye off the ball during these challenging months. And then we're still working very hard to get the message out about the opportunities that Hong Kong offers, particularly around this Greater Bay region, which I think is the most exciting economic development initiative on the global landscape. So helping companies all around the world understand what is happening in these 11 core cities in this part of southern China that will become one of the world's most innovative-led regions, backed by the financial services prowess of Hong Kong.
Interesting, the negative impact reporting from the media on the national security law. It's been not all that, as we would say in Australia, all that squizzy. Do you think it's being overstated?
Well, clearly the national security law has attracted a great deal of attention. And I think it would be fair to say that it's been conflated with wider geopolitical issues that the world is facing. But I really believe it's important to look at the facts as to what is really being said, whether it's by the Hong Kong SAR government or indeed the central government in Beijing, rather than just continuing with this sort of hyperbole, this frenzy of reporting. I think the facts are very different. Basically, I don't think businesses have got anything to fear. Social stability has been returning to the city. And as we've touched on already, lots of new opportunities exist, particularly in relation to the Greater Bay Area. And that ties into this innovation agenda in Hong Kong as well.
Just interesting, the media, it just goes to town sometimes.
The images that I've seen in the media and the reporting that I see really don't reflect the day-to-day situation of the city. Obviously, we had the social unrest in the latter part of last year. The reality is that was happening, but it was very isolated in particular areas. And yet the media reporting made it look as though it was across the entirety of the city. And to the contrary, most people were getting on with their daily lives, working just as normal. I remember back after the Asian financial crisis, spending a lot of time in Indonesia. And if I was watching the international media, there were tanks on the streets everywhere and the whole place was in turmoil. The reality being there for a whole year, I probably saw tanks not in action just on 2 or 3 days. So I think we all need to seek very wide inputs in terms of what is really going on and listen to the whole range of voices and then take a reasoned judgment about the reality of what's taking place, whether it's in Hong Kong or in other parts of the world, which are also seeing periods of turmoil.
What advice then would you give to, say, local or a wider business community about the future of doing business in Hong Kong?
Well, I'm very optimistic myself about the future. What I think businesses need to do is continue doing what they do well. So keep focused on serving the needs of clients, strive for the better future, continue to innovate. COVID really has accelerated the pace of innovation and digitization, creating new opportunities along the way. And ultimately, I think businesses will prove the naysayers wrong. Go back to those figures that I quoted for the Startup Festival. Businesses are interested. And I do wish that more people would listen and see the whole picture rather than just fragments of the picture.
How do you see Hong Kong maybe in the next 10 years? Alan Zeman was saying that Hong Kong is still the same Hong Kong. It hasn't changed and it has a great future, especially now with the connection to the mainland.
Yeah, well, I would very much agree with Alan's comments. Hong Kong's strengths remain. They remain intact. If you look at the dynamism of the city, the well-established institutions that we've got, the common law system that we use, all of those cornerstones are in place. Our fantastic geographic location, which is obviously just part of nature, is also incredibly important. We've got this amazing talent pool in Hong Kong as well, with a very broad international outlook and people from all around the world who live and work in the city. Adding on to that, we've got this renewed focus on innovation. We've got the developments in the Greater Bay Area, which is going to see this region in southern China really become a hotbed of economic activity. And at the same time, Hong Kong's increasing role as a conduit between the mainland and ASEAN and ASEAN and the mainland. This is an area where I see a lot of growth in the next decade or so, looking at intra-Asia trade and investment flows, which I think is probably going to be the biggest driver of global economic growth over the next decade. And Hong Kong is right there at the heart of it.
In your own or in Invest Hong Kong's achievements, what are you most proud of?
Well, day to day, what we do is, you could argue, quite boring, help companies set up. But it does really two important things for Hong Kong, and particularly for the people of Hong Kong. It creates good quality jobs, and it also helps the economy to continue to develop and thrive. So in short, what I'm really proud about is what the team at Invest Hong Kong does to make a difference to the lives of people in Hong Kong. And that is what drives our team.
Stephen, pleasure chatting with you. I really miss Hong Kong. Once this COVID disappears and we get a vaccine, I can hop on one of the big jets and head down to over to Hong Kong and do some reporting from there. A beautiful city, great people, vibrant, and a fabulous future is ensured for yourself, Invest Hong Kong, and for everybody that works and lives in Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.